We are fortunate to be joined by Elena Poleo,
Política Elena Poleo.
an activist and longtime journalist. Elena, thank you very much for coming in.
Hello, and welcome to the Career Moms Connect podcast. I am Elena Poleo, a communication specialist with over 20 years of experience, and I am so glad you're joining us for this podcast, where I will interview amazing women who love their jobs and their families. We'll talk about the challenges that women face in the workplace and at home and how they have overcome them. Hopefully, we can all learn a little bit from each of these fabulous ladies and feel a little bit less alone in this journey of working motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Career Moms Connect. I want to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, so you make sure that you don't miss any of our episodes, because I have a lot of great people coming up in the next few months. And today I am so excited to reconnect with an old friend, Julianna Strout. Julianna is a leader, a mom, and an entrepreneur force in Florida. And her career has spanned public service, pageantry, community building. And as a former Miss Rhode Island and a North Bay Village Commissioner, Julianna has always been drawn to platforms that uplift others. And now she is channeling all of this great energy into creating the SRQ Women's Expo. So we're going to talk about all of these transitions, all of these wonderful things that Julianna is doing. Julianna, thank you so much for joining us here today at Career Moms Connect.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to reconnect with you.
So it's fun because I met Julianna many years ago when she wasn't a mom yet. And now she is mom to baby Vivian. Julianna, how old is baby Vivian?
She is now, 2.5 years old. And, as you know, with being a mom with girls, like the time just flies by. So yeah, it's always exciting. It's something new every day with her.
And it's funny. So I will ask our listeners and whoever is watching on YouTube to please bear with us, because we are both carrying colds that our children brought home from school and daycare. So, bear with us. I'm sure you moms out there can relate. So, we're fine. We're here. We got to keep trucking on, right? That's what moms do. That's what we do. So I want to bring up, everything that Julianna, every time I hear about Julianna, she's doing something else. She's doing a great project. I met her while she was commissioner here in South Florida for North Bay Village. And she has had an incredible journey from, working in the pageantry world, which I believe you're still involved in, and we can talk about that, being Miss Rhode Island, like I said, being an elected official, then nonprofit founder. Now, Julianna, what is it about this, about what you do? Everything that you have done is to serve others in one way or another. Tell me a little bit about where you think this desire to serve and create has come from.
Yes, well, my grandmother really instilled that in me. I had two grandfathers that were very involved in the political scene, and giving back to their communities on both sides of my family was something that I saw. And being the firstborn grandchild on both sides of my family, I really felt as if that, that was something where I needed to continue on in that fashion and following in my family's footsteps, both in the political arena and also giving back to my community. I was very, heavily involved in my youth group, in both the churches and the temples. We had a very strong Christian, upbringing, as well as we also had a very large Jewish community where I grew up. So I had that mix of being able to understand, both those religions, and both of them really involved, community service. So that's something that even from being a child to a young woman to a woman with a 2-year-old, I bring Vivian with me, and I want her to have that same mindset of how important it is to be able to give back to your community.
I love that. I try to bring my kids along to whatever I can, and things that won't, mine are already 10 and 8. So they kind of have a mind of their own now. But they do like to go with me. And when I get back as a mentor for Women of Tomorrow, they go with me to one of the sessions. When we do community outreach, she always comes with us. So it's great to introduce them so young, at a young age, to everything that they can do in the community. So like I said, I met you when you weren't a mom yet, and you were single, you were a powerhouse, you were an elected official, nonprofit leader, just so many things. And then you got married and you had a beautiful baby. So tell me how things have changed. How has motherhood changed you? Do you think, well, let's start with, do you think motherhood has changed you? And if it has, how?
I would say it definitely has changed me. I would say that, prior, I was always working at, and as you know, I was trying to spearhead different women's initiative programs within North Bay Village, within Miami-Dade, supporting moms and women in business. But in a way, I felt like I was writing this, travel book to a destination I had never been to. So when I finally went there and went through it all, and 26 hours of labor and all this other stuff that you don't realize. Like, I mean, I had this mindset where I'm like, I'm going to be breastfeeding on the dais and I'm going to figure it out and do all these things. And all these little journeys, it humbles you 1,000%.
Oh, yeah.
And you realize, I thought, having commission meetings till 2 a.m. Was like, oh, I'm going on no sleep. I'm like, yeah, well, when you're newborn, and you have a husband that was, coming back to playing professional baseball and just got Tommy John surgery when Vivian was 7 days old, it was definitely an eye opener for me. And you really do have to find that inner strength and that stability, because you know that it's not about you anymore. It's about really, knowing like, I have to bring this baby into the world and I have to be able to provide, like, she relies solely upon you. And you form this connection and this bond with this baby. And, and also you realize the community, I was the commissioner of North Bay Village. So we always say, oh, it takes a village, it takes a village. But you really, like, at heart, you really understand that it does take a village to be able to even just raise one child. You need to be able to have that support. You need to be able to know about those community resources available to you, because you really should not do it on your own. And that was really one of the driving points as to what I realized, what we needed in Manatee and Sarasota County, and what we are hoping to bring to Miami-Dade is the SRQ Women's Expo. Having women realize, our mission is about focusing on beauty, business, and self-care. And the self-care component, I really lost myself in motherhood. I did not realize the toll that my body was going to have to take to breastfeed my daughter, to have to be up with her all night, and really what was it going to take for my mental stability to kind of find myself again. And I also had the loss of my father and my grandmother, shortly prior to my daughter being born, and then shortly after her being born. So you really do. I can understand when they say that moms can, lift objects, 10 times the weight of them, or lift a car, to protect that baby, because there's nothing that I can find in my life prior, or that feeling, knowing that I would do whatever it takes for my daughter. And I think that you having, little girls, like, what it's like it's just this strength that you find within yourself to keep moving forward, to keep doing it, and just loving them, more than anything you've ever done before in your life.
And that's so interesting that you bring that up, like, after you gave birth, how, like, you realize it hits you like a truck. I mean, it's like, I thought I was tired before. I mean, this is a whole new level of tired that if they haven't experienced it, there's no way that you could even explain it, because it's just a whole new level. And you said, you've mentioned publicly before, you felt, and I'm there with you, like, you felt like your life had changed. And there's this feeling of also feeling like really alone. I had this feeling, you're home a lot, right? With the baby and taking care of the baby and all the things that entails. And then you're physically exhausted, possibly in pain if you had a difficult birth or a C-section or breastfeeding. And you feel so alone. And we're not supposed to talk about that, right? We're supposed to be, Motherhood is perfection. Motherhood is beautiful. There's nothing bad about it. But the reality is that it is a very difficult transition. It was for me. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely a difficult transition, especially when I had a lot of friends that had children similar in that age group. And I would ask them like, well, why didn't you tell me about this or that? And she's like, oh, if I told you, then you wouldn't do this or do that. And I'm like,
That's so true.
friends, what great friends I have. But then it's true in that way. And then also, you need to be able to be, I'm very open with, what my experience was, and especially having a newborn, because I don't want, you have that feeling of isolation. And, you and we're both very people person, personalities. Like I love being able to be out and about, engaging with my community. And I struggled being at home and also being very private with that experience because I didn't have Vivian on formula. And I didn't realize like, why is this like, it's supposed to be this moment when you're breastfeeding your daughter,
Magical.
a magicalness. And I'm like, why is this hurting so much? Like, why is this so painful?
And nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the pain of breastfeeding.
I thought I was doing it wrong. And I'm like, am I doing this wrong? Is it supposed to hurt this much? And then I went right back to work, not that long after. And I mean, I literally served my 4-year term until November 20, it was like 21st or 22nd. And then I went into labor on the 28th.
Yep. And that's the other thing. You were an elected official. You can't just step away. I had my own business, right? So I can't just disappear into nowhere for 6 months. Yeah. I wish, but it just was not the way things run. And we feel so alone during that time. There are things that we don't talk about in public, like how difficult it is, how alone you feel, how painful it can be, how, like actual literal pain and scary stuff can happen to your body after you give birth. And those things and then you decided to channel all this stuff. See, I created Career Moms Connect because of that, because I feel that career moms who work, and listen, moms who stay home with the kids, they work. They work. And that it's a different
that changed my mindset completely.
Oh my God.
I so bad because I know I was thinking that those women I categorized, and that was my fault. And I take full responsibility. I raised my hand. I had a different mindset for my friends, even and other people that I was close to, that I was like, well, like you have it easy. And I'm like, they don't. They really don't. I felt better when I went to the office and I could have an adult conversation and I could do these things, in my regular pace. But then it's also when you're home and you almost feel as that this is, like your safe haven and you love I love my house. But when you're taking care of a newborn and you don't have that adult interaction and you're, using your brain in that way, you do suffer from you do have that sense of isolation. So I even talked to my friends afterwards and I had to apologize to them because even though they never felt that way of me telling them that, I instinctively was thinking that when I was, single and being like, I doesn't have a, like, Mom, I want to be. And you really have to, everyone's, journey is so individual to their experience and what they're going through. And, the support of their spouse at the same time. And then even the type of baby you have, like, I am so grateful. Like Vivian, I could get her on her scheduled feedings and I could get her to go to bed. I did co-sleeping, I still do co-sleeping. I had her on my chest, but it's like, you have to be able to kind of communicate with the people that have gone through these experiences. And it's so important to be, transparent with that and talking to these other moms because they're going to feel more isolated if they feel as if like, God, am I the only one struggling with this? Am I the only one dealing with this? And, that's one aspect that a lot of the moms do like with the Expo is that they get to talk to moms that are working, that are staying home, that are just trying to even find, like, what do you do for your kids, like, at that age group? Like, I want to do activities. I want to do playtime, or just even we provide free childcare. Oh. And I, thought, I'm going to be fine. I have, my mother-in-law or I have people in the community that can help me. And you do get a little protected because you're just like, this is the most valuable.
Absolutely.
Like, you get nervous. And then you always talk about children having separation anxiety. Like I had separation.
Yep.
So it's all those little emotional things. We are emotional creatures. So it is really important. Like what you did, you channeled your energy to career moms. I think it's important for moms to find that different source of an outlet to not feel lost in who they once were before being a mother.
And it's so interesting that you use that phrase lost, right? Like and I've used that phrase so many times with my friends, like, I feel like I lost a part of myself after becoming a mother. And it's not so much that you lose, as you evolve, you realize it's not that you lost yourself. It's that you changed, right? Now you're like a different version of yourself, and you have to find it again and come back. And it took me a long time. And right when I was kind of like getting it, I went and I had a second baby. So, so after now my kids, it took me a while. I created Career Moms Connect because of that connection. I feel like it was lacking. We are not supposed to do this in a bubble. We are supposed to have a village. Communities are supposed to be together, to do everything together. We know that early communities, the women would all mother together, mother everybody's kids together, and it was a much more cohesive way of living. And you created a place where moms could connect as well in the SRQ Women's Expo. So why don't you tell us more about it and where we can find information about this?
Yes, well, they could go to the srqwomensexpo.com, and they can learn about, we do about a show every quarter, and they can understand, each show has a different unique component to it, the different businesses that participate in it, and the different educational aspects of that. We always try to have somebody who can focus on financial literacy, because we, always find out when we're talking, to these different moms, women make up about 87% of the household decisions, but they're not generally always in control of the purse strings associated with the household. And for a lot of our moms that we have employed or those that attend, they want to understand, like, how do I prepare for education long term for my children? How do I invest our finances to be able to prepare for retirement? I mean, we kind of give them those, the framework and the roadmap to help prepare them for a strong financial future. If they are making 87% of the household decisions, you really are the CEO of your household. And you need to be able to understand, not just the day-to-day grocery shopping, utilities, and the overall mortgage of, the house. You should be concerned about, how do we prepare for when the children, we have the empty nest, syndrome scenario. What do we do with our finances so that we can be able to enjoy our lives long-term together? So we do talk about, what is a healthy retirement plan at any age, and that you can start at any age, and you don't have to feel that, I don't have a lot. Even $20 a month, we can show them as to what is the proper roadmap to success in that. And then there's also the fact that we work with different non-for-profits beyond ours that help support these women in business. I mentioned earlier, we have 14 businesses that launched through the program, through the marketing initiatives that we launched for them, through the implementation of a business plan. We've worked with SCORE Mentorship, which is a federally funded program that helps, businesses in any different industry start a business plan, how to be able to execute your goals and how do you work on that. And then we've also had relationships with the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance. We were just awarded as a community impact nominee with the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, as well as non-for-profit of the year with Manatee Chamber of Commerce as a nominee. So, we've really been able to make sure that if the businesses that are participating in the expo don't know about the right ways to connect, we will bring those resources to them. So if they're a business, they can be able to sell their products and services. If you're an attendee, you can be able to get complimentary spa services. You can get your self-care needs. You can just, connect with other moms. You get free childcare. And like, we always forget to take photos of ourselves.
Yes.
And we do free mommy and me photo sessions so that you can have a beautiful professional photography session free with a $10 donation to the American Heart Association. And that's one of our non-for-profits that we support with the Miss America organization, because heart disease is one of the leading causes of death for women, and we need to be able to be heart healthy. So when they make that $10 donation, they can be able to get their mommy and me photo session. They get free childcare. They get a chance to meet and greet with fabulous businesses. And they're also getting this great VIP bag, which has about $1,500 worth of services and educational material for them. So it's a really fun, energy,
tell us again, what's the website?
So the website is SRQ Women's Expo.
There you go. SRQ Women's Expo. And this is in Bradenton, right? In Florida.
Well, we are, we've generally done it at the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota. And we
Okay.
just did a collaboration with the Grove in Lakewood Ranch. So we just had our last one, which sold out at the Grove in Lakewood Ranch, which is a fabulous location. We love their ballroom. We're going to be doing our July show there. And then we're coming to Miami-Dade for our holiday show. And we always do a toy drive. So I'm going to be working with Miss World America, going back to the pageantry,
Back to your roots.
back to my roots in that. So Victoria, who is, resides within Miami-Dade County, we're going to be working with her to bring this initiative there and just support the women in business within Miami-Dade.
That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, you are definitely, you aim for the stars, you're a high achiever, and I am a perfectionist, which I actually don't, that's not a good thing. Where it's like, oh, she's such a perfectionist. Yeah, but that's not a great thing to be, right? So tell me how you've managed that, because I know you're a perfectionist as well. And how have you managed this, always high achievement? How have you managed that in being a mom?
Well, I never really thought I had anxiety. I thought I managed that. And then you see, like, the house is in disarray, constant disarray. And then you just I'm like, I might have this. Is this what a panic attack feels like? Because you're just you controlled your environment for so long that there is constant chaos. So there is no way to properly prepare for a child at any stage in your life. So that's when I hear someone saying, like, I'm going to wait. I'm like, wait for what? Like, there is no, like, you're in a high speed chase marathon trying to be able to keep up. And I have a 2.5-year-old. So let me tell you, I clean one room and I think everything's fine. And I have a white couch, which was a horrible idea.
No,
I don't know what I was thinking. I like everything wide and clean and just pristine. And that couch, I got a warranty in that thing, but that thing is way out of warranty.
Forget it. Don't get a new one until she's like a teenager. And
no, I'm not changing any of the furniture until I'm out of the baby phase. Yeah. So I think that, you try, and that's why I think a lot of times moms like you and I struggle with motherhood so much in those earlier phases, because there is so much disorganization and there's so much chaos that our brains struggle with that more, because we can't compute, there's just no solution. And so that's where you really come to the point, I have changed. I have become more relaxed. I have understood that my environment is not necessarily what's going upstairs here. I can be able to say, hey, this room, I'm going to get it as clean as I possibly can. I'm going to try to, get her down for nap time. But then also I realize I need to take a rest. It's okay for me to nap with her. And I think I personally struggled with that because my mind was so busy, and I would know about the dishes in the sink, or I hadn't heated the bottles properly. And then you just let it go. And you realize, if I'm tired, just go to sleep with her. Yeah. And we wake up whatever time it is, and you try to structure them in the healthiest way possible, because for naps and whatnot. But you have to understand, I think that high functioning people, we sometimes don't always listen to our body. We're more driven by our mind and our goals. And I think sometimes you just have to take a seat back and listen to your body. And I had to do that. And I really had a hard time with that. And it took me at least probably even until the first year that I finally just was like, it is what it is. She's healthy. She's advancing. She's fed. She's clean. There's no diaper rash. There's nothing like that. That's the least of your worries. So the house being a mess, or you not meeting that deadline. And then it's also important to kind of my evaluation of the people I would have worked for and worked with has also completely shifted.
Yes.
Because I don't want to have people that are not going to understand my mental, health at the same time too.
Yeah, that is so important. Having working with people that are kind of in your same wavelength, and letting go of perfection is really difficult. I still struggle with it every day, and I just sometimes have to go, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. I cannot let perfection be the enemy of good, right? Like it's just good enough, you know. I made it to a deadline just in time, maybe not perfectly, but it's good enough. And that meal, maybe it wasn't cooked from scratch, all of it, but you know what? It's good enough.
Yeah.
My kids ate it. So
Yeah.
that's the win. Now, one of the other things, other than letting go of perfection, which I think a lot of women have a difficult time with, but also being resilient. Okay, your career, my career, our lives have gone through a lot of speed bumps and a lot of detours. So I think that resiliency, we don't talk about that enough, or it kind of sounds like a buzzword, like, oh, resiliency. No, but really being able to recover from serious speed bumps along the way is very important. Tell me a little bit of the tools that you have used to come back from difficult moments, and how you have maybe teach this to other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I mean, I was 8.5 months pregnant when I dealt with probably the most difficult decision that I had to be able to ever face. I think that, and most people even know, is that, when, my husband did not have at that time, the proper, immigration status and things, like I would do whatever it took to be able to make sure that, I could help him in any way. And, I was pregnant during, those phases of my life. So, I had to be able to be very resilient. I had to be able to say that, this is not going to be something that's going to shape my overall, decision on my future. I want to be able to always, stay true to my roots, which is, giving back to the community and really, finding, a base of how can I provide service. I think that you're the same way. You're either built that way or you're not. I think that there are ways where your strengths, you have to embrace those weaknesses. And then through that, your strengths actually become, stronger because of how you've handled certain scenarios. So, I mean, losing, my father, and then losing my grandmother, who are the pillars in my life that really provided that sense of resiliency for me, and really the sustainability of who I was. Um, so I had to be able to really, pivot in those moments. And through motherhood, I think that you realize you're like, I need to be able to be the best version of myself, to be able to, understand that everything that I'm going through, she's going to, shadow me. She's going to be able to copy everything that I am. And you want to be able to understand that, if I take this moment now to reflect upon what I need to be able to do, pivot and just like take a pause. I think sometimes we're so fast paced and we're so focused on like, how do I get X, Y, and Z done? But if you kind of take a moment to, reflect upon what is going to be the best choice and what can I be able to get done in that moment, that's what's going to be really helpful for the long-term goals of what you want to be able to have. And that's what's really helped me.
I love that thought, just take a pause, do maybe an inventory of what's going on around your life, and understand that difficult moment in your life could be something that happened to you, could be a bad decision. We're not perfect beings, we make mistakes. That doesn't have to shape your entire life. And sometimes we get so much tunnel vision in this one thing where we messed up, or we, maybe you get fired and, you freeze, that's a terrible thing to go through. I've been laid off from what I thought was my dream job and ended up not being, right? And at that moment, I felt like my life is over. Like it's over. I have nowhere else to go. And that was 20 years ago or something, maybe more. But things, life has changed and evolved. And now I'm in a completely different place, super happy. You don't know why things happen, right? And you just need to get over them. But that moment of pausing and assessing the situation and reminding yourself over and over again that moment doesn't define your entire life.
Of course. And there's that sustainability aspect of like, how do I want to be able to, have it be the focal point? Am I going to stay in this mindset of being negative and not being able to get to the next phase in my life? And that's the same thing I tell a lot of these women that I'm helping them create their business plans. We tell them like, listen, like this is going to be something that it's going to bog you down if you don't just pivot, and you just have to be able to take it to that next level and that next step. And you have to make that choice for yourself. I'm not going to be able to do that for you. And even though it can be very scary for them, to make that initial investment in themselves and in their businesses at the same time too.
Mhm.
But they've done that, and I have seen them come back every show. I've seen them go out to farmers markets, and a lot of them where this was like their side hustle,
Yes.
their full-time job. And I just feel so blessed that I was able to have just that little bit of like a moment in the beginning of their career path for a passion project that they had, that now is like their full-blown job, and that now they have to hire family members and outsiders to be able to, really keep that going with them. And that's what's so important, is like the families that these women are working within to keep their businesses, sustainable, to be able to keep them long term, to be able to get them to that different level of growth. That's why, we talk about, like, it does take that village. Childcare is one of the hardest things for a lot of people and a lot of moms to be able to figure out, because the cost of it is so high. I mean, are you going to go out into the workforce where what they're paying the daycare worker is the same that you would necessarily make out in the workforce? So that's why we have a lot of times where we hire a lot of these moms. They can work remotely for the expo. They can either be a sales associate with us, or be able to have like their business be a vendor with them. So we give them those different options for them to participate in that. But we don't want them to ever have to really kind of understand, like, am I going to make that initial investment in myself or in my business? How do I do that? We can be able to give them that security that they may need, but they still have to make that initial step.
Yeah, taking that initial step can be so scary, but it is so satisfying. It takes time. That's another thing that I try to tell people, guys, don't expect that this thing is going to be from one day to the next. My husband and I have a very successful public relations firm in South Florida, but it wasn't overnight. I mean, literally our first clients was like a tiny ice cream shop in the middle of nowhere. Like, you start small, and now we've been in presidential campaigns and we represent Fortune 500 companies, and that first step, that first little step, and having a team behind you, I can't even imagine what that would have done for me if I had had somebody like the SRQ Women's Expo next to me. And that is such a wonderful, wonderful resource. I hope everybody that is listening visits this website, gets informed, and please send it to a friend. Send this episode to a friend who wants to, or has a great little side hustle that they want to grow, that wants to be an entrepreneur, that wants to open their own business. Please send them this episode so they can find out about the SRQ Women's Expo. Julianna, I also want to talk to you really quickly about mentorship. I know that you have mentioned having some wonderful mentors in your life. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how important that was in your career.
Well, I am so fortunate. Richard Schiavone, who is still a North Bay Village Commissioner, has been my mentor personally. He's the godfather for my daughter. And even politically when I was campaigning. And I mean, you and your husband have been mentors to me too. So I'm very grateful. I've had so many wonderful people in my circle. I don't always listen. I think
okay, that's a separate step.
So I've worked on that part. But for me is that everybody needs their sounding board. It's either going to be your husband or your mentor, or you need that person in your life. And through mentorship, for me, even through the Miss America program, Valerie Clemens knew me when I was 18 years old. And when I needed that mentor to be able to help me understand my career path earlier on, how I was going to compete at Miss America. And then when the state of Maine had a directorship come available as an executive director, she put my name in there because she had worked with me and she knew that this was something where I could really provide mentorship for young girls in the Maine program. And so it's really come full circle for me. I've been able to launch business plans. I've been able to, launch political careers through the SRQ Women's Expo. And then just personally, I feel that the best mentor is going to be somebody that is never going to judge your decisions, no matter what choice, even if you don't make the choice that maybe they were trying to gear you towards, or say, hey, you may want to take this path versus this one. But they're going to always be honest with you. They're never going to worry about, hurting your feelings. And they're going to always do what's best for you and have that unconditional love. And I have always felt that with the mentors that I've had, and I've been very grateful for that. And if anybody in business or in personal or just launching a political career, I hope that they do find that proper mentor to really guide them through that. And I've been fortunate that, you've known me, gosh, since I was, in my early 20s. So I'm very grateful for all the relationships that I've been able to build over time that have been so supportive of me and have mentored me, to get to supporting the community through the Women's Expo.
Yeah, it's mentorship is so important, and it's funny because you never really, at least I didn't realize that somebody was a mentor in my life until like I look back and I go, wait a minute, this person was really helpful to me in the
Yes.
moment. You don't realize it, but there are people that will extend their hand to help you up. And those are the people you want around, not the ones that are going to claw you back down. Those people, we need to get rid of those people in our lives.
Yeah.
You want the ones that are going to
Our circles get smaller and smaller as we get older, right?
so much smaller. Anybody that's trying to drag us down, and nobody understands. I mean, everybody needs to understand that there's plenty of room at the top for all of us, right? We don't need to drag anybody out. What we need to do is lift people up. And so with that, Julianna, because that is exactly what you do every day, we're so grateful for all the work that you do. Julianna, thank you so much. I would like to remind everybody that you can go online and visit SRQ Women's Expo, find out more information. If you're in Florida, they may be coming to a location near you. And I can't wait for you guys to come down here to South Florida, because I'm totally gonna, and we're gonna talk offline about that. So I can't wait. Thank you everyone who is listening. And please share this episode with a woman in your life, a friend, a family member who wants to break out and be an entrepreneur and maybe needs a little bit of a push. This is the episode for them. Thank you so much for listening to Career Moms Connect. And thank you, Julianna, for joining us today.
Hi, thank you.
Bye, thank you.